Hello everybody, here today talking about the Jonathan Huberdeau deal and my take on it. Now before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you are new. Now let's get to it. And the basis of this is the fact that this deal is an 8-year, $10.5 million AAV contract that kicks in during the 2023-24 season and then runs to the 2030-31 season, which feels like a lifetime away. Now, clearly we can see that the Flames are committed to the former third overall pick as they've given him a lengthy contract, and they are doing so by also giving him a full no movement clause in his contract for the first 6 years of the deal. That's a little scary, but let's go through the negatives first, then the positives before I give my take on the deal. Doing the negatives first because I like the negative news first. I'm a negative then positive type of person for when news is broken to me. So the negatives. He is already 29 years old and the deal doesn't start until the season following this upcoming one, and he'll be 37 years old on the final year of this deal. That is rough. I've said before, if you're going to sign a contract with somebody, especially a long-term one, you'd like to get them when they're younger. Having a guy that's 29 that you already have through a following year to where he'd be 30 before the new deal starts really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I digress. Another thing is he's coming off his best offensive season ever. 30 goals, 85 assists for 115 points. Is this the new norm, and is this something that Calgary expects? Now, points are something that I said are kind of random before, especially when you have assists, where you're relying on your teammates to make the most of their opportunities. But this is something that I'm curious to see. Do they think that he's going to be a guy that goes out and gets 115 points a year? That is going to be interesting. And then another thing is that full no movement clause that NMC through the first 6 years of the deal could be really rough. Let's say he plays well this year on his current deal, and then when that new one kicks in, does well for another year or two. If he starts to do poorly, are other teams going to say, we want this guy that is in his early to mid 30s that is getting paid $10.5 million per season and can't be moved? Probably not. And we also have to consider Huberdeau is not exactly a stud defensively. I think this is well known at this point. A guy that is very well known for his offensive play, but as we know, he does drag down his value in terms of what he's able to provide because he is so offensive based. And then the final thing here that I said, this isn't that big of a deal, but he will actually be the 8th highest player in terms of average annual value with this new deal, but I don't really know if he should be that way. Now, I know that that's based off contracts that are signed, but I could probably easily make a list of 8 other players that are worth a higher AAV than him. Now, let's talk about the positives. He is clearly a great offensive player, not only for himself, but other teammates as well. In the past 3 seasons, he is second in the entire league for assists. That is crazy, especially considering number 1 is Connor McDavid. So you know that if somebody's name is attached right next to a guy like Connor McDavid, they have to be a very good player, and of course he is here. Also, he is a proven goal scorer, has scored 20 plus goals in a season multiple times in his career and over the past 3 seasons as well, 33rd in the NHL for goals scored. Probably won't ever be a guy that scores 40 goals, maybe on an odd year, but a guy that definitely could give you 20 to 30 goals a season. Another thing is here, he replaces Johnny Hockey quite well in terms of getting a player of that talent level, and then of course of just being a great player off the rush, north-south guy that is going to help out the team offensively. You lose a guy like Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau, you have to find a way to replace them if you're going to be competent, which of course getting not Johnny Hockey, but Huberdeau is big because you are able to then replace him, or at least try to replace him with a player that is very good as well. And that's a big thing. He is a top-line caliber player. I don't think there's any ignoring that. He is a very good winger, one of the better wingers in the league. I'd have to make a list one day. I hate making lists, though, because people freak out about him. But yeah, he is a top, we'll easily go 15, probably 10 as well, line winger in the league, at least on his side. And we will see if he is going to be able to do what he has in Florida. And the final thing for a positive is he wants to be there. You know, Calgary, I wouldn't say is a destination place for a lot of guys. You get the Canadian taxes, and if you're a guy searching for fun, Alberta might not be the exact place you want to be. Not saying that it's not enjoyable, because I think I'd enjoy going to Calgary on a little vacation, but going from Miami to Calgary could be seen as a step down in the eyes of other people. But Huberdeau has no problem saying that he wants to be there and put his money where his mouth is by signing this deal. My parting thoughts with this, before I make my verdict. The Flames were put in a very bad spot with Johnny Gaudreau wanting to leave. That happened. Then Matthew Tkachuk wanted out, so they had to make a trade. Most teams do bad trades in order to get the situation solved. But I think that Calgary was able to dig themselves out of a little bit of a bad spot there with a Tkachuk trade by doing this trade with Florida, where you got the Huberdeau, you got Uyghur, you got a first-round pick, I think, as well in that deal, and then another player. But that was a good way to get out of a very bad spot, a rock and a hard place. And they were in a little bit of a pickle, though, right after the trade, because then it was Uyghur and Huberdeau are both on the final years of their contracts, so they had to do something, and they didn't want to lose him for nothing in free agency, which is where this all led to getting him this extension, having him on the books for 9 years. So my final verdict for this is mixed. I think this is going to be a good deal in the short term for Calgary. Of course, they were a team that has good enough talent, I think, to make the playoffs and maybe make some noise. They have multiple guys that I would say should factor into their success. They're not a team that is just going to fall off the face of the cliff, but they probably won't be as dominant as before. I think last year was a crazy year for them in general, but they are a team that is using a guy like Huberdeau in the right time, and of course trying to keep this thing going as the Battle of Alberta happened. And they're a team that's used to making the playoffs, at least in recent years, kind of sporadic, but have been able to make it, and they want to keep that up. But I also think this could be bad in the long term. Yes, Huberdeau is clearly still a very, very good player, but to give him that much money to make it to where he's untradeable over the first 6 years of the deal, that is problematic, especially as he gets older. I think this deal will look worse. So kind of a mixed bag. I think that he could maybe live up to the deal, but that's a lot of money, so probably not. But yeah, for the next 2 or 3 years, maybe even 4, could be a little bit longer, maybe he's worth it, but I have to say this is going to be good in the beginning, bad at the end. We'll have to see. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know down below in the comments. Please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you are new. Everybody, please stay safe. Have a great night, and Eagle love hockey, all right? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.